Hey, tonight we walk ancient roads worn smooth by sandals and sun. Through the hills of Galilee, where whispers swirl like dust in the breeze, whispers of a carpenter's son who speaks like thunder and touches people like sunrise. A man who heals with no medicine, commands storms without a sword, and makes skeptics out of scholars. His name you already know. But what you don't know, what most people still don't know, is how it actually felt to be near him. The way the crowds pressed in. The way he looked at you like he knew your whole life in one blink. The quiet, shocking awe of watching the rules of nature turn fluid at his feet, revealing the little-known dot. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. Press the notification bell to update many new videos. Drop your location and what time it is for you in the comments. Let's see how many time zones we're wandering across tonight. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey. Together you trudge down a narrow trail between olive trees, sandals slapping dust into the warm air. It's the kind of afternoon where the heat clings to your skin like beeswax, and Galilee hums with the slow rhythm of late-season cicadas. Jesus walks ahead, not grandly, not like he owns the road, but like he knows it, like the gravel shifts. Out of reverence beneath his steps, people follow, not in a wild stampede way yet, but the crowd grows daily. Farmers, widows, merchants, even a few oddly clean Roman types with eyes like trained dogs. You're one of them, just ... walking, watching, wondering there's something off about him. And by off, you mean unexplainable, like how he listens more than he speaks. How he stares into nothing as if it might answer back. He doesn't rush, not ever. And even when kids scream, or beggars groan, or someone shouts a challenge from across a field, he stays calm, as if he's playing a song only he can hear. You pass through a sleepy village with maybe 6 goats and 2 proper walls. A woman peeks out from behind a hanging basket of figs. A boy trips trying to sneak past a Roman patrol. The world is still the world, oppressive, dusty, full of little struggles and sudden beauty. But near Jesus, even the air tastes different, sharper, brighter. Is he going to do something today? Someone mutters behind you, like actually do something. He doesn't do things like a magician. Someone else answers, rolling their eyes. You have to listen. You catch a glimpse of Jesus glancing over his shoulder, amused. Somehow, he always hears these things, but he doesn't correct them. Not yet. Fun fact, by this point in his life, Jesus has already avoided assassination attempts, been mobbed by hungry crowds, and argued with temple officials who have enough political pull to make someone disappear. Still, here he is barefoot on a donkey, trailheaded toward people who may or may not want him dead. Historians still argue whether Jesus ever intended to start a movement, or whether it was his followers who mythologized him later. But tonight, you're in the thick of it. And there's no doubt, whatever's happening here isn't man-made. Later, you pass a fig tree that hasn't borne fruit in years. You hear Jesus mutter something under his breath, and by morning the leaves have crisped into paper. You're not sure anyone noticed but you. He doesn't brag, he doesn't perform, but he affects things. The world reacts to him. A few days into the walk, things start to change. A feverish boy in his mother's arms gets close to close for some. People back away. Jesus kneels, says one quiet word, and suddenly the kid's breathing like he just came out of a cool bath. No fireworks, no ritual, just ... healed. You don't clap, no one claps. It's too weird for that. The boy's mother sobs. Someone mutters about sorcery. Someone else kneels, and Jesus. He just gets up and keeps walking like it never happened. By now, the group is double what it was on day one. You spot Pharisees pretending not to take notes, Roman scouts, people in high-end cloaks who normally wouldn't be caught dead with the sandal crowd. But here they are, clutching their robes as if truth might seep into their pores if they get close enough. Late one night, by a cooking fire, a fisherman tells you something. Strange, he knew my name before I said it. Told me to drop my net on the wrong side of the boat. Thought he was crazy. Then we nearly sank from the weight of fish. You chuckle. I wasn't laughing, the man says. I left everything and followed him. The next day, another woman stumbles into camp from some dusty sidetrack. Her eyes are wild, her hair matted. She's muttering things, some of it in a voice that sounds like two people trying to speak through one mouth. The crowd stiffens. Jesus walks right up to her. You brace yourself for anything, a public shaming, a legal dispute, maybe a tactical retreat, but he doesn't flinch. He puts a hand on her forehead, whispers, and suddenly, ... silence, like a switch flipped. She collapses, then slowly starts to laugh, soft at first, then harder. The kind of laugh that comes after years of clenching your soul like a fist. She follows the group from that day on. Never says a word, just listens. Not everything's loud. Some miracles are so small, so quiet, they feel like secrets. One night, Jesus touches a blind man's face. Nothing changes, then again, still nothing. Then the man gasps. People look, like trees, ... walking. Jesus tries a third time. This time the man sees clearly. Why didn't it work the first time? You ask yourself that as you lie under the stars later, wrapped in a borrowed shawl, listening to the distant sounds of river, frogs and exhausted pilgrims. Why didn't it work the first time? Maybe the world isn't a vending machine. Maybe Jesus isn't here to impress you. Maybe healing is sometimes more like unfolding than fixing. The fire pops, a donkey brays in the dark. Jesus sits alone by the edge of the firelight, staring into the coals like he's remembering something from long before he was born. The next morning, you wake to the sound of sandals slapping mud and someone whisper, shouting, "It's happening, it's happening." You blink against the dawn haze, eyes gritty, breath still tinged with sleep and campfire smoke. The field has emptied. Everyone's moving toward the center of a nearby village. Cana, someone mutters. You don't know, it's just a quiet backwater tucked into the folds of Galilee. Apparently there's a wedding, and Jesus was invited. You stand, stretch, follow. By the time you arrive, it's already chaos. The courtyard is full, long tables, packed with half-drunk relatives, flower petals trampled underfoot. A toddler howling because his olive rolled under a bench. You spot Jesus leaning into a conversation with a tall woman who must be his mother's same hands, same calm. She's whispering, he's listening. Then she turns to the nearby servants and says boldly, like it's obvious, do whatever he tells you. You raise a brow. Jesus looks, ... reluctant. A little sigh slips out of him. He glances toward the large stone jars near the wall ceremonial for washing feet and hands and gestures. Fill them with water, he says. One of the servants stares at him like he just asked them to dance with a camel. All the way, he asks. All the way. You step closer, pretending to inspect a fig on a platter, just watching. The jars are huge, 20, 30 gallons each. Water sloshes. Lifting the full ones takes teamwork and some wheezing. Jesus waits. He doesn't wave his hands or say an incantation. He just waits, like the air is thick with something only he can smell. Now, he says, draw some and take it to the master of the banquet. The servant dips a ladle, walks nervously toward the head table, and hands over a cup. You've seen people try bad wine before. It's usually followed by polite coughing, nose scrunching, or if honesty prevails, a dramatic spit. But this guy, he blinks. Then he laughs. Then he calls out over the crowd. Most people serve the best wine first and the cheap stuff, after everyone's too tipsy to notice. But you used the best for last. There's a beat. Then the bride's father, red-faced and sweaty, laughs too. The crowd joins in, relieved. Crisis averted. Wedding saved. You glance at Jesus. He isn't smiling. Not quite. He's distant. The moment lands for everyone but him. Mainstream historians love pointing out that wedding wine was usually diluted 3 parts water, 1 part fermented grape. So for this miracle to be real, it couldn't just taste sweet. It had to taste like miracle. A vintage older than the vines. A flavor that belonged to another world entirely. And this wasn't a flashy stunt. No parade, no announcement. Just a quiet restoration of joy, tucked inside an ordinary moment. You have to admit, it's almost disappointing until you realize that's the point. You sidle up to one of the servants later. Was it really water? You ask. He nods, eyes wide. I poured it in myself, and the wine I've tasted. Royal wine, he says. This was ... something else. Later that afternoon, you catch Jesus outside the courtyard. He's sitting on a stone ledge, sandals off, rubbing the bridge of his nose like a man with a hangover, though he hasn't touched a drop. You didn't want to do that, you say. He doesn't answer for a while. Then, my hour hasn't come. What hour, he doesn't explain. Just smiles softly. But Mama asked. You try not to laugh. God obeying his mum. There's something strangely comforting about that. As the sun dips low, the village sings. The bride dances in her father's arms. Wine flows more than enough now. And for the first time since you started following him, Jesus lets his shoulders drop. Just a little. He watches the people like a man watching a sunset. He can't touch. Here's the thing. In every other miracle story, there's suffering first. Hunger, sickness, death, storms. But here, it's just a party. A potential embarrassment. Sure, but not a tragedy. And yet Jesus steps in anyway. Saves the joy, not the life. Scholars still argue whether this first miracle was symbolic or practical. Some say the jars represented old religion, and the wine was the new covenant. Blah blah blah. Others point out the anthropological detail, that running out of wine at a first-century Jewish wedding could bring social ruin to a family. But for you, standing barefoot under a string of oil lamps, it just feels like mercy. Mercy, ... Without crisis, ... You stick around Cana a few more days. People start talking. Quietly, the man who turned water into wine. The one who speaks like thunder. You realize something unsettling. This won't stay small for long. By the time the wedding buzz fades, Jesus is already moving again. He doesn't linger, doesn't take credit. You ask why he's leaving when people clearly want him here. He just shrugs. There's more to do. So you keep walking. Down another trail, through another grove, past more whispering villagers who try not to stare. Every step away from Cana feels like stepping deeper into something you can't name. Not yet, but it's coming. And strangely, the miracles don't feel like fireworks. They feel like corrections. Like the world's been a little tilted, a little cracked, and he's quietly bending it back into shape, one cracked wedding. One forgotten woman, one leaky fishing boat at a time. You've been walking with Jesus long enough to learn that routine doesn't really apply. One day it's healing a stranger with a word, the next it's a long dusty silence. His eyes scanning the horizon like he's waiting for a message. Only birds can carry, but today feels ... different. You find yourself standing ankle deep in sand beside a wide stretch of Lake the Sea of Galilee, though honestly, it's more of a giant freshwater lake. The kind of place where the horizon tricks your eyes into thinking the world ends in blue shimmer. It smells like wet wood and fish guts. The sun is just starting to smear gold on the waves. There's a group of men on the shore hauling in empty nets. They look tired. Not disappointed, just that quiet kind of numb you get when you've worked all night and have nothing to show for it. Fished all night. Jesus asks, one of them broad shoulders, beard like a bear's paw. Yep, catch anything. Another shakes his head, slapping water from his tunic. Not even a tadpole. Jesus smiles, points toward the water. Try again, over there. There's a long, skeptical pause. You can almost hear the unspoken sarcasm rippling under the silence. Oh sure, random preacher man. Let me take advice from a carpenter about fishing, but then, probably, just to humor him they do it. The net flies out, splashes down, a few seconds pass. Then the ropes go tight, a shout. Then to dot the nets, bending like it's caught a sea monster. The boat lists hard to one side, water sloshes over the edge. You rush closer as the fishermen strain, eyes wide, muscles trembling. There are fish dozens, 100 silver flashes, spinning and writhing like the lake itself decided to leap into their net. One of the men Simone's, panting, his beard dripping. He turns to Jesus, eyes full of something between awe and panic. Go away from me, Lord, he says, stumbling to his knees in the surf. I'm not good enough for this. Jesus looks at him, really looks at him, then he says something. That freezes you, not because it's terrifying, but because it sounds like a future no one expected. Don't be afraid. From now on, you'll be catching people. Now, let's be real. Fishing for people? If anyone else had said that, you'd be calling the local authorities. But here, in this moment, it feels right, not logical right. Like a chord striking. True, inside your chest, Simon doesn't hesitate. He drops the net, walks away from the boat, just leaves it. His brother too, a few others follow, stunned and barefoot, like men who just woke up from a different life. Historians still argue whether Simon Peter's story is symbolic myth or a literal call. Fringe theorists love to say the miracle was exaggerated, or that the lake's seasonal fish migration just made Jesus look psychic. But you were there. You saw the moment the nets bent toward the divine. One of the younger fishermen, James, whispers to you later. I thought he was gonna say, congratulations on your catch. Instead, he called us to leave it behind. You're okay with that? He grins. He filled my net just to prove I didn't need it. That afternoon, the group grows. Not just the fishermen, other curious faces start tagging along. Men with nothing left to lose. women with questions and sandals worn thin. A man with ink-stained fingers, probably a tax collector, keeps awkwardly trying to introduce himself. Jesus doesn't mind the crowd, but he watches Simon closely, tests him in small ways. "See those people over there?" he says, pointing to a family trying to patch a roof. "Help them." Simon groans, but does it. You can tell he's used to shouting orders, not taking. Then at night, the fishermen gather near the fire, comparing calluses and counting new bruises from the boat. Jesus listens, occasionally tosses in a parable like seasoning a stew with mystery. "The kingdom of God is like a net," he says once. "It gathers all kinds of fish, even the ugly ones." Someone jokes, Jesus chuckles. "Even the ones that bite." You're starting to get it. These miracles, this whole walking circus of confusion and beauty isn't about dazzle. It's about invitation. Jesus isn't just showing power. He's rewriting the rules, bringing no bodies into a story that used to be reserved for priests and kings. Later that week, the same fishermen try to fish again just for fun. No miracle this time, just a regular catch. And they're okay with that. It hits you there. Not chasing miracles, they're chasing him. Quirky tidbit of the day. Some scholars claim that Peter's boat may have been found in the 1980s during a Galilean drought, a preserved wooden vessel, carbon dated to the 1st century. They call it the Jesus boat. It's now in a museum under glass, but back then, it probably smelled like sweat and mackerel and destiny. That evening, the group sets off again. New town, new eyes watching. The air buzzes with that familiar tension. What will he do next? And somewhere behind you, a net lies abandoned in the sand, still damp with miracle. You're inside a synagogue, now cool stone under your feet, the scent of old scrolls and crushed herbs hanging in the air. The place hums with quiet tension, like everyone's waiting for something to go wrong. You sit off to the side, trying not to draw attention. But Jesus, he walks right up to the front, as if he owns the room. Or rather, like ownership doesn't even cross his mind. Like he's just there, the way sunrise just happens. It's Sabbath, which means no work, no cooking, no spontaneous displays of supernatural power. Thank you very much. Pharisees line the edges, robes crisp, expressions preloaded with skepticism. They're here for the rules, not worship, and certainly not surprises. There's a man standing awkwardly near the back. You notice him because everyone else is trying not to. His right hand is curled and useless, like it's forgotten how to be a hand. People shift away from him subtly, like deformity might be contagious. Jesus notices to dot now. He could ignore it. No one would blame him. Heal the guy quietly after the service, maybe in an alley where the rules can't catch him. But of course, that's not his way. "Come here," he says, motioning to the man. You can feel the temperature drop in the room. Eyes sharpen. Even the Torah reader pauses, mid-scroll. The man hesitates, then steps forward. Jesus turns to the crowd. His voice is calm, but somehow it lands like a slap. "What's lawful on the Sabbath? To do good or to do evil? To save life or to kill?" Nobody answers, not one word. And here's the historical bit. Back then, Jewish law on the Sabbath was complex, layered like bureaucratic lasagna. You could technically help someone if their life was in danger, but a withered hand, not life-threatening. So, helping him, that'd be breaking the rules. Jesus stares at the silence, not in anger, in grief. Then, without fanfare, he says, "Stretch out your hand." And the man, trembling, confused, does. His hand unfurls like a blooming flower, pink, alive, whole. A collective gasp rattles the walls. Someone drops a scroll. The man flexes his fingers like he's meeting them for the first time. He laughs loudly, freely, then clamps a hand over his mouth like he forgot where he was. The Pharisees, they don't laugh, they exchange looks. Their mouths go tight. One of them slips out the back, already whispering about conspiracies and blasphemy. You can practically hear the parchment sharpening. Jesus turns away from them, not out of fear but weariness. You get the sense he's done this dance before. As the synagogue empties, people linger. They touch the healed man's shoulder. One kid keeps poking the restored hand like it's going to vanish. You overhear someone whispering, "Did you see that?" And another muttering, "He shouldn't have." Quirky side note: some fringe archaeologists claim they've found ancient graffiti carved into synagogue walls in the Galilee region, little human figures with oversized hands, drawn like primitive comic strips. Nobody knows what they mean, but wouldn't it be something if they were crude tributes to a moment like this? Later that day, you find Jesus sitting alone under a fig tree. He's not praying, he's just quiet, reflective. You knew they'd be mad, you say. He looks at you sideways. If a sheep falls into a pit on the Sabbath, what would you do? You shrug, pull it out. He raises an eyebrow. So, why not a man? It's not really a question. You sit beside him. The leaves flicker above you like tiny green hands waving hello. Somewhere nearby, a donkey brays like it just remembered it left the oven on. You made enemies today, you say. Jesus picks up a fig and rolls it between his fingers. I didn't come to keep peace with lies. Historians still argue whether Jesus intentionally challenged the religious elite or if he was just following a radical sense of compassion that happened to conflict with institutional power. But from your spot in the grass, it sure looks deliberate and dangerous. The group walks again that night, through quiet villages and rocky passes. You don't talk much. The healed man joins you for a few miles, holding his once broken hand like it's a newborn bird. When he finally leaves the group, you notice something strange. He's walking taller, straighter, not because of his hand, because someone saw him, because someone decided his healing was more important than everyone else's rules. You pass another village. Someone shouts a question from the shadows. Are you the prophet? Jesus doesn't answer, but he doesn't deny it either. The fire that night is smaller. The stars burn lower, like they're listening. And as you drift to sleep, you wonder. Something new. How many rules written or unspoken has this man already broken? And how many more will he? The next town has square rooftops and narrow alleys that smell like dates, bread, and too many people living too close together. You squeeze past carts of lentils and yapping dogs and a man yelling about figs being 2 for 1. But only if you're not Roman. It's noisy, hot, packed. Jesus is heading toward a house not his own, a friend's. Word spread fast, like it always does now. He barely gets inside before the place fills wall to wall with people. Some are kneeling, some leaning against pillars. Some pressed to the open windows, trying to catch a glimpse. You're lucky enough to make it through the door before the crush. You wedge yourself against a back wall. It's hotter inside, the scent of sweat and spiced bread, floating thickly through the air. He starts teaching. He talks in that same parable-laced rhythm, planting tiny mysteries in people's heads like seeds he's not in a hurry to water. But the crowd isn't just here for words today. They're waiting for the next impossible thing. You can feel the expectation twitching under their skin. Then something starts scratching overhead. At first, people ignore it. Mice, birds. But the scratching gets louder, more deliberate, then thud. A chunk of plaster drops from the ceiling and lands in someone's lentil bowl. The homeowner lets out a strangled hey. You look up. There are hands up, they're human hands, pulling back roof tiles like they're unwrapping a gift. People start shouting. One Pharisee clutches his robe like someone's vandalizing scripture. Itself then, through the hole, a mat appears, ropes tied to each corner. It wobbles dangerously as it descends, revealing a man, completely paralyzed, lying flat. His face is frozen in something between terror and embarrassment. You wonder how many rooftops they've already tried. Jesus watches the whole scene unfold, like it's a sunrise. He doesn't panic. He doesn't lecture. He smiles. The mat hits the floor with a soft thud. The paralyzed man stares at the ceiling, probably praying this wasn't the worst idea his friends ever had. Jesus looks at him. Then this is key, he says something completely unexpected. Your sins are forgiven. And boom, just like that, the room fractures. Pharisees lean in, scandalized. People start whispering in waves. You feel it too. That wasn't what anyone expected. Not get up, not be healed. He skipped over the legs entirely and went straight for the soul. One of the Pharisees' eyebrows permanently furrowed speaks up. Icy and formal. Who is this man that speaks blasphemy? Only God can forgive sins. Jesus hears it. Of course he does. He turns slowly to face the group. His voice is soft, but sharp. Why are you thinking these things in your hearts? Dead silence. Which is easier, to say your sins are forgiven, or get up and walk? You shift in your sandals. That's a good question, actually. Jesus continues. But so you know, the Son of Man has authority to forgive sins. He turns back to the man on the mat. I tell you, get up, pick up your mat, go home. And that's when the man slowly, blinking, in disbelief, does exactly that. He moves, he sits up, he stands, his legs don't tremble. He doesn't need help. He bends, picks up the very mat he was lowered on, and walks through the crowd, parting it like a knife through oil dot. And then he laughs, loud, bright, like he's discovering sound for the first time. The crowd erupts. Some are cheering, others are gasping. A few look terrified, like they've seen something they shouldn't have. But no one's bored. Historical fact. Homes at that time often had external staircases leading to flat roofs made of beams, mud, and thatch, easy to dig through if you didn't care about etiquette or deposit refunds. And apparently these guys didn't. Fringe Theory Corner. Some researchers claim this exact house was later turned into one of the first house churches, preserved under layers of later stonework. True, who knows? But wouldn't it be something, later? That night, you walk outside. The air's cooler, quieter. You see Jesus leaning against a tree, looking up at the stars. That was risky, you say. He doesn't look down. Which part? The roof, the forgiveness, the Pharisees. Jesus shrugs. People carry heavier things than broken bodies. You pause. Did the man deserve it? He looks at you then. Do you? Oof. Okay, don't reply. Just sit beside him for a while. The night wind smells like cinnamon and charcoal. Somewhere, someone is still telling the story of what happened today, shouting it even. Scholars still debate, was Jesus forgiving sins metaphorically? Was it a spiritual cleansing or an actual claim of divine authority? But from where you're sitting, none of that matters. The man walked, and more than that, he walked away lighter. And up on that roof, 4 friends are probably still laughing, sitting cross-legged in the hole they made. A little property damage for a whole new life. Worth it. You're on a boat now. Not one of those shiny ones you see in glossy harbor postcards. This one's all splintered wood and patched canvas sails, and it rocks in that deliberate, stomach-infusing rhythm that reminds you how small you are. The Sea of Galilee stretches wide and deep in every direction. The stars are out, blinking lazily above, like they've seen this story before and are just waiting for the next plot twist. The day had been long, teaching, healing, parables about seeds and soil and mustard, so tiny it might as well be dust. Jesus had looked exhausted, so when evening came, he'd stepped into this very boat and simply said, "Let's go to the other side." You expected conversation, maybe another mysterious story. Instead, he curled up in the back of the boat. A cushion, no less sand, fell asleep. Like actually asleep. As if preaching all day to impossible crowds hadn't drained him at all. And for a while, the water's calm, peaceful. The men around mostly fishermen are quietly navigating. A few nod off. The only sounds are soft splashes and the occasional cough dot. Then comes the wind. You hear it before you feel it. A low, moaning gust that stiffens the sails. Then another. Then the sky tears open and starts pouring like someone knocked over heaven's wash basin. Waves slap hard against the side of the boat. The sky shreds with thunder. You try to see, but your eyes sting with salt. And these aren't gentle rainstorm waves. These are towering, crashing, grab-your-neck waves that slam into you like they're trying to unmake you. One of the disciples screams. Another yells to bail the water. Simon shouts something unrepeatable as the boat lists hard to one side. And there, in the middle of this chaos, Jesus is still asleep. Not groggy, not blinking awake. Asleep, head on the cushion, completely unaffected. You want to scream. Someone actually does. "Teacher, don't you care if we drown?" Jesus wakes slowly, like a guy who's been interrupted from a nap during a boring lecture. He sits up, rubs his eyes, and looks around, not afraid. Just ... disappointed. He stands. Wobbles once as the boat jerks, then steadies himself. Then he says, to no one in particular, "Quiet. Be still," and the storm listens. The wind dies. The sea flattens like silk dropped onto a floor. The clouds roll back with a weird obedience. And the silence afterward is almost worse than the chaos, deafening. Absolute, like the entire lake is holding its breath. Jesus turns to you, all wet, shivering, wide-eyed. "Why are you so afraid?" he asks. "Do you still have no faith?" "Now. You've seen some things by now. Healed hands, demons cast out, paralytics dancing like toddlers. But this is something else. Healing people is one thing, but talking to a storm like it's an unruly toddler, having it obey, that's the kind of power that doesn't just heal. It commands. Nature knows him. You sit there, dripping, blinking, your heart still racing as if the waves might come back just to make a point. Someone whispers, "Who is this?" Even the wind and the waves obey him. Historians still argue whether this story was literal or metaphorical. Was it a real storm or a dramatic illustration of inner faith? Some say the Sea of Galilee, known for sudden tempests, was simply behaving naturally, and that the event was exaggerated in the retelling. But sitting in that boat, still rocking from memory more than motion, you know what you felt. The storm didn't end. Submitted later, When you reach shore, Jesus steps onto land like nothing happened, like he didn't just scold the sky. You follow in silence, feet squishing in soggy sandals. Your hands still smell like wet rope. But inside you, something has shifted, because it's not just that he calmed a storm, it's that he slept through it. You think about that all night, curled under your blanket, listening to the faraway lap of calmer waves. You think about his calm, the kind that isn't ignorance, but confidence. The kind that could fall asleep on a boat surrounded by shrieking wind because he knows it can't hurt him. A quirky historical tidbit. Sailors in the ancient world were often deeply superstitious. Some believed the sea had spirits, or that gods controlled storms, and that sleeping during a tempest could curse the voyage. So Jesus' nap, that wasn't just casual. It was provocative. But maybe that was the point. Maybe Jesus was showing the youth that real peace isn't the absence of storms. It's the presence of someone who's bigger than them. That night, someone mumbles near the fire. What if he can command everything? No one answers, but you all feel it. The morning sun is still shaking dew from the reeds when your group steps onto the eastern shore, a rocky, barren slope known more for its tombs than its hospitality. The Decapolis Gentile territory. Not exactly friendly turf for Jewish travelers. And the air here feels heavier. Somehow charged. You're barely a few steps inland when you hear it screaming. Not the kind of scream you hear when someone stubs a toe or sees a spider. This is something primal, ragged, like a man trying to claw his soul out through his throat. You all freeze from the distance. Someone comes barreling down the hillside, naked, filthy, hair wild like tangled rope. His body is covered in cutsome. Fresh, some scabbed overhand chains dangle from his wrists and ankles like jewelry from a nightmare. You've never seen eyes like his, wide, yellow, not quite human. The fishermen instinctively back away. Someone reaches for a stick. You don't even know if you're breathing. He falls at Jesus' feet, drops like a felled tree, and then he speaks. But it's not just one voice, it's many, layered and snarling, like a swarm trying to take turns. Through one mouth, "What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? Don't torture me." Jesus doesn't flinch, not even a little. "What is your name?" he asks, and that's when the voice says, "Legion, for we are many." Your spine goes ice cold. Quick sidebar. Legion isn't just poetic. It's Roman military lingo. A legion meant 6,000 infantrymen. So either this guy is full of metaphor, or something darker. The demons, yes, that's what they are, beg him not to send them away, not out. They're terrified of him. They point toward a nearby hill, a herd of pigs, hundreds of them, rooting in the dirt, snorting like they know something's wrong. "Send us into the pigs," they plead. Jesus gives one tiny nod, and what happens next is ... Chaos. The man convulses, screams, echo across the rocks, then an eerie, too loud stillness. The pigs, gone. They bolt like they've been lit on fire, straight off the hillside, down into the water. All of them. You hear splashes, dozens, then bubbling silence. The herdsmen watch in stunned horror. You don't blame them. There goes a small fortune into the sea. Possessed bacon, the man lies. Still now, breathing, eyes clear. You barely recognize him. Jesus helps him sit up, finds a tunic from one of the travelers, covers him gently, and the man just ... sobs, not loud, not ugly, just quietly. like someone who forgot they could cry. The herdsmen run back into town, probably to file the strangest incident report in Decapolis history. The rest of you just watch, as this once possessed man sits at Jesus' feet, listening like a student on his first day of class. Here's your quirky tidbit. Pigs weren't just considered unclean in Jewish culture, they were literal symbols of Roman occupation. Some fringe thinkers argue that this whole event was a metaphor for empire, corruption, and spiritual cleansing. Maybe, but the pigs drowned. That's not metaphor. That's splashy, expensive, undeniable fact. When the townspeople finally arrive, they don't fall to their knees in gratitude. They stare at the man, then at Jesus, then at the water, and their faces harden. They don't cheer. They beg him to leave. You can't blame them, really. Pigs don't just jump into lakes every day. And if Jesus can evict demons with a word, what else could he change? Their businesses, their politics, their fragile, pig-anchored economy. The healed man clutches Jesus' robe. Let me come with you, he pleads. Jesus shakes his head. Go home, tell what God has done for you. And just like that, he gets back in the boat. The man stays behind, dressed, clean, weeping. But upright, as you push off from shore, you look back. He's already headed toward the town, toward the people who chained him, who exiled him, who buried him while he was still breathing. And now he's got a story to tell about darkness and voices, and the man who made them leave. Historians still argue if this is allegory or literal. Was the man mentally ill? Did Jesus use the language of the day to describe trauma and healing? Was there truly a legion inside him? You're not here to answer that. You just saw a man possessed by a horror too heavy for one body. Walk away with peace. Later, someone jokes about the pigs. You all laughed hard, stunned laughter, humor like a relief valve. But Jesus, he's quiet again, looking toward the opposite shore. What now? Someone asks. He just says, back across you. Sail under a sky streaked with the pinks of coming twilight. And behind you, on the cursed hillside, one man is finally free. You're in the middle of a crowd so thick it feels like walking through rising dough. Elbows press into your ribs. Sandals trample yours. A merchant's tray of roasted locusts nearly clocks you in the chin. The sun's overhead, merciless. And yet no one's leaving. Why? Because Jesus is back. Word got out about the storm, the pigs, the man who now sleeps indoors instead of in tombs. And now every mother, father, sick uncle, and desperate daughter within 20 miles is trying to get close. They want something, healing, hope, just a look. And Jesus, he's moving slowly, listening, touching, teaching. In fragments over the din, he doesn't shout. He doesn't need to. Then something odd happens. He stops, mid-step, head tilted eyes, distant, like he's overheard a secret meant for someone else. Who touched me? Peter Ever, the realist snorts. Literally everyone. We're packed in tighter than pickles. But Jesus shakes his head. No, power went out from me. The crowd hushes. People look around, confused. It's like being in a classroom, when the teacher suddenly goes silent and everyone wonders who's about to get detention. Then you see her, a woman, crouched low near the ground, eyes darting like a cornered animal. She's already backing away, hoping, praying, maybe that. No one noticed, but he did. She stands, slowly, shoulders slumped, her hands tremble. Now here's some context. This woman, she's been bleeding for 12 years. not just inconvenient. In her world, that makes her unclean, untouchable, untouching. She's had no hugs, no shared cups, no shoulder brushes. She's lived like a ghost. She spent everything she had on doctors, and the only thing they gave her was deeper poverty and more questions. And yet somehow she made it through this crowd. She told herself, if I just touch the hem of his cloak, not even him, just the fringe. And she did, and it stopped. The bleeding, the emptiness. In an instant, like someone turned off the faucet that had been leaking her life away. I touched you, she says softly. I did. The crowd stares. Jesus looks at her not with accusation, but with recognition. Daughter, he says, daughter. Only time he uses that word in all the stories. Your faith has healed you. Go in peace. Tears flood her eyes. She sinks to her knees, not from shame but from relief, from something she probably forgot existed, dignity. Historians still argue what exactly happened here. Was the bleeding real, psychosomatic, symbolic? Some medical theorists today think it may have been a gynecological condition, like chronic hemorrhaging. Others say that in a culture so centered around purity codes, the deeper miracle was her restoration to society. But standing there, watching, her shoulders relax for the first time in over a decade, none of that matters. You don't see a case study. You see a woman who reached for healing in desperation and found something better than she hoped for. But there's no time to linger, because suddenly new panic. A man pushes through the crowd, face pale, voice shaking. He's from the house of Jairus, a synagogue leader whose daughter was sick, dying sick. Jesus had been on his way there when this whole cloak-touching moment happened. Now the messenger arrives with the blow. She's dead. Don't bother the teacher anymore. Jairus crumples, but Jesus, already turning, says simply, don't be afraid. Just believe. She'll be well. The crowd doesn't follow this time. Just a few of you. Jairus leads the way, dazed. You follow. Heart pounding, half wondering how this will end and half afraid to know. Here's a quirky historical tidbit. First-century mourners were often paid. That's right, flute players, wailers, all hired to show up and make a scene. When you arrive, they're already in full volume wailing, sobbing, flutes shrieking like dying goats. Jesus tells them, stop wailing. She's not dead, just sleeping. They laugh, not kindly. It's the cold, cynical laugh of people who know death and aren't interested in hope. Not here, not today, but Jesus walks in anyway, with only a few of you. The girl's parents, Peter, James, and John. She's there on the mat, still, small, her skin the color of wax. The room hums with grief, thick and buzzing. Jesus kneels beside her, takes her hand gently touching the dead, which again is breaking all the rules. Talitha cum, he says, which means, little girl, get up. And she does. Her eyes flutter. She sits up like she's waking from a nap, rubs her face, yawns. You've never heard a scream like her mother's scream, half joy, half disbelief, full volume. Jesus just smiles. Get her something to eat. He says, like the resurrection itself made him a little hungry. People talk for weeks about that moment, maybe longer. The girl lives. The woman bleeds no more. Two miracles woven together in one interrupted journey, and that hem of his cloak. You find yourself glancing at it sometimes, wondering how many more stories live in its threads. The sun is high, beating down on a wide hill outside a small town. You've been walking for hours again, and so has everyone else, apparently thousands of them. The hills are speckled with people like seeds scattered by the wind. Men, women, kids perched on shoulders, grandparents hobbling uphill on aching knees just to get a glimpse of Jesus. And what do they all have in common? They're hungry at first. No one says anything. They sit and listen as Jesus speaks parables, riddles, blessings. But then the shifting starts. Babies cry, stomachs growl. People start whispering about food, or the lack of it. You hear Philip, one of Jesus' crew, mutter under his breath, "Even 200 denarii wouldn't buy enough for all these people to have a crumb." Jesus looks over the crowd. No panic, just that thoughtful, almost amused expression he wears when a problem is about to become a lesson. "How much food do we have?" he asks. Someone, probably Andrew, shrugs. "There's a boy. He has 5 loaves and 2 fish. But that's nothing. Not even a snack board." You look over, and sure enough, there's a kid holding a small basket. You have no idea why he offered. Maybe he was just trying to help, or maybe his mum raised him right. Jesus says, "Have the people sit down," so they do. In clusters, in groups of 50 and 100, like a disorganized picnic that accidentally became a movement. The grass is warm. The sun's slanting just right. It doesn't feel like a miracle's about to happen. It feels like lunch break. Then Jesus takes the bread. He looks up to heaven. He gives thanks, and he starts breaking and breaking and breaking and breaking, and it never stops. The basket never empties. You keep waiting for the moment when it's done, when he'll shrug and say, "Sorry, that's it," but it doesn't happen. The bread just keeps coming, like it's growing in his hands. And the fish, same thing. You hand out fillets to kids who've never eaten meat in their lives. One man tears up just tasting its salted fish, a luxury, a miracle. Another guy tries to trade his portion for wine. His neighbor swats him. Before you know it, everyone's full. Not politely full either. Stuffed. People are loosening belts, lying back on the grass, sighing with the kind of satisfaction that usually follows weddings or feasts of kings. Then Jesus says, "Gather the leftovers." You raise an eyebrow. Leftovers, really? But sure enough, baskets full from 5 loaves and 2 fish. The crowd doesn't shout. They don't cheer. They just stare. The realization lands heavy and silent. This wasn't normal. A historian might point out that communal meals were common among spiritual leaders, that sometimes people shared more when inspired by hope or guilt. But you passed around the baskets yourself. You saw the math. This wasn't generosity. This was creation. Fringe theories. Oh, there are plenty. Some say the miracle was psychological. People brought hidden food and shared it once the boy set the example. Others suggest it was metaphorical, a story told later to express spiritual nourishment. But none of those theories explain how you watched Jesus tear the same bread over and over and never run out. Somewhere on the hillside, a donkey brays. A kid chases a butterfly, and thousands of people just sit, blinking into the breeze, trying to figure out what exactly happened. Jesus, he slips away again, quietly, like a magician who never wanted applause. Later, as you walk downhill, someone taps your arm. Why didn't he just teach? The man asks, "Why the food?" You think for a second. Maybe because hungry people stop listening. Or maybe it was about something deeper. You remember an old passage. Man does not live on bread alone. But sometimes bread helps. That night, the fishermen murmur about what they saw. One of them jokes about opening a restaurant. Call it 5 loaves. We'll serve endless fish with a side of existential crisis. You laugh, but you also can't stop thinking about that little boy, the one who didn't have much, who gave it anyway, who ended up feeding thousands. You wonder if he even understood what had happened, or if he just went home that night and said, "Mum, you'll never guess how far my lunch went. The stars are out again, familiar by now, distant, and on the wind you can still smell the faint, salty trace of fish. The sea is still tonight, stretched out under the moon like spilled ink. The wind has finally taken a break, and even the insects seem to be whispering instead of singing. You're back on the shore, watching the disciples push off in their boat. Without Jesus. Go ahead, he had told them. I'll catch up," which was confusing. Boats don't exactly wait around mid-lake, but you didn't ask. Nobody did. He said it calmly, like he had a plan. Like walking wasn't a problem, even over water at first. It's just you and him, sitting on a rock above the shoreline. He doesn't speak. He just watches the boat bobbing smaller and smaller in the dark. Then he stands, and without warning, he walks into the water. No sandals off, no hesitation, no drama, just one step, then another. Then he's out past the first ripple, then the deep part, but he doesn't sink. You blink, rub your eyes, and almost laugh. The sea is beneath him like glass under bare feet. He walks across it like it's just another road, farther and farther from shore. He becomes a silhouette moving toward the boat, now swallowed by distance. On the lake, things change. Fast, a storm rolls in out of nowhere. The sky goes from sleepy to snarling. You can't see clearly, but you hear shouting. The boat rocks violently. Then you hear a scream. Not terror, confusion. It's a ghost. Someone shouts, because from the boat it would look that way. A figure out on the water. In a storm, not drowning, Jesus speaks. His voice floats across the waves like it doesn't care about wind. Take courage. It's me. Don't be afraid. Back on the boat, Peter is already climbing the edge, drenched, breathing fast. Lord, if it's really you, tell me to come, Jesus. Pauses, then come. Peter steps overboard, and for a moment, it works. He walks, 2 steps, 3, maybe 4. Eyes locked on Jesus. The impossible suddenly feels logical, even effortless. But then Peter looks down, and that's when everything shifts. He sees the waves, the depth, the absurdity. Doubt rushes in faster than water. He begins to sink. Lord, save me. Jesus grabs him instantly. No waiting, no scolding. But as he pulls him up, he says, gently, "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" They climb into the boat together, and the storm stops completely. Just ... Gone. The sea smooths out. The wind dies. The sky opens back up, and in the stillness, no one speaks. Then someone whispers what everyone's thinking. Truly, you are the Son of God. That might be the first time someone said it out loud like that. Not just healer, not prophet, not teacher, but divine. Historians still argue over this scene. Some call it poetic fiction symbolism of faith versus fear. Others note the detail that the Sea of Galilee is shallow in places, allowing for the possibility of submerged rock ledges. But submerged rocks don't move with storms. And Peter didn't just stumble. He sank like someone who realized gravity, had feelings, and the timing, to clean, to pointed. This wasn't an accident. It was lesson theater. The boat drifts now calm, its passengers stunned, silent. You sit again with Jesus hours later, back on land. He's got a tired, content expression on his face. You know the look. The one he wears when people take one small step closer to understanding what made him sink. You ask. Jesus picks up a pebble, rolls it in his palm. He saw the storm. He says, "You wait for more." That's all he says. You think back. Peter was walking just fine until he looked away, not from Jesus, but toward everything else. The chaos, the risk, the fear, the facts. It wasn't the water that betrayed him. It was his focus. Quirky fact time in ancient Jewish culture. The sea often symbolized chaos and evil, untamable, unpredictable and dangerous. For Jesus to walk on it wasn't just a flex. It was a declaration. I'm in charge of the things you fear most. That night, the disciples whisper to each other. Not jokes, not plans, just awe. You hear one of them say, "He doesn't just calm storms, he walks over them." And in your bones, you feel it's true. That's the part they'll write down. The part that will survive scrolls and time and critics. But you'll always remember the smaller part. The moment a man started sinking and was grabbed before he even hit the bottom. The next town is busy with voices. Not the usual chatter of markets or kids yelling across rooftops. This is more ... tense. Cautious. You hear murmurs ahead of you before you even round the bend. He's here again. The man from the storm. The one with the hands, with the pigs. People peek through curtains. Some stare openly, others pretend not to. You're used to this now. Everywhere Jesus goes, he draws curiosity like smoke draws attention to fire. But he walks the same way he always doesn't like. The road belongs to everyone, especially the forgotten. It doesn't take long for someone to bring forward a man. He's led by hand, carefully. His feet stumble like he's unsure where the ground is. His eyes dart but don't see. They're glazed over, unfocused. He's blind, and not from birth. Someone whispers nearby. No, he lost his sight later. Accident. Illness. No one knows. But you can tell he's afraid. He hears Jesus is near, but doesn't reach out. It's like he doesn't want to hope too much. Jesus takes his hand gently and leads him away from the crowd. Not far, just a little distance. Enough for privacy. Maybe dignity. Then he does something ... strange. He spits. Spit isn't usually a spiritual tool, but he spits on the ground and mixes it with dust, makes mud. Then he places the mud on the man's eyes with careful fingers. You flinch just slightly, but the blind man doesn't resist. Then Jesus says softly, "Can you see anything?" The man blinks. Again, he squints into the sunlight. "I see ... people," he says. "They look like trees, walking." There's a pause. It's not a failure. It's incomplete. Jesus touches his eyes again. No mud this time, just skin on skin. Then the man's face changes. You see it before he says anything. His whole body shifts, like a man waking up from a long dream. His eyes widen. I can see, not just shapes now, details, faces, color, sunlight. Like he's meeting it for the first time. He turns in every direction, laughing, giddy, grateful. Still blinking like his brain is catching up to what his eyes are sending. 2 touches, not one, which, let's be honest, is unusual for Jesus. Usually, healing is instant. boom, done. But this, it's progressive, layered, like peeling off the veil one step at a time. Historians still argue why. Some say Jesus was showing us that some things heal in stages. Others suggest the man lacked faith, or that Jesus was trying to demonstrate something deeper than eyesight. You ask him later, why 2 tries? He smirks. Did it bother you? No, you admit, it just surprised me. Good, he says, and walks on. That's the thing about Jesus. He doesn't seem interested in setting a pattern. He's not trying to make healing into a formula or a system. Sometimes he touches, sometimes he speaks, sometimes he does both. Sometimes he just wills it, and sometimes, like today, he spits. There's actually a fringe theory about that. Some ancient cultures believed saliva held healing properties. Maybe Jesus was playing into that. Or maybe he just liked surprising people. You look back at the man who can now see. He's smiling at everything grass clouds, a goat chewing, a sandal. To him, it's all new, all worthy of wonder. He walks with a bounce now, calling people by name. He even waves at a fig tree, then laughs when he realizes it doesn't wave back. Another detail to notice. Jesus tells him not to go into the village. Don't even go back there, he says. No fanfare. No parade. You wonder why. Maybe the man needed to see the world before. He heard everyone's version of what it should mean. Maybe Jesus wanted him to enjoy sight without becoming a symbol. There's a line someone says later, I was blind, but now I see. People repeat it for years, turn it into poetry, into testimony, but you know the original story. It wasn't all at once. It was gradual, messy, holy, strange, and unforgettable. That night, around the fire, someone tries to imitate the miracle spits in dirt and makes a dramatic show of patting it on another guy's face. Everyone laughs. You're not Jesus. The guy grumbles, wiping it off. No, someone says. But wouldn't it be something if he did it again tomorrow? Wouldn't it, though? The blind man stays with the group for a while. You catch him watching the stars. One night, tears on his face. I never thought I'd see this again, he whispers. You don't answer. You just sit with him and look, too. The stars don't look like trees. They look like home. It starts with a finger in an ear. You're in the region of the Decapolis again, which means mostly Gentiles, mostly suspicious of wandering miracle workers. Jesus hasn't been here long, and already a small crowd is trailing behind, whispering, watching him like he might spontaneously combust. A group pushes forward, a man not carried, not sickly, just quiet, too quiet. His eyes dart around nervously, trying to make sense of the people crowding him. One of the men shouts directly in his ear, exaggeratedly, he can't hear you. No kidding, the man is deaf. And not just that, his speech is twisted, thick, hard to understand. You can tell he's spent his whole life watching lips, guessing meaning, being told to stay silent because talking wrong makes people uncomfortable. Someone pleads with Jesus, please, just put your hand on him. Jesus nods then, like he so often does. He pulls the man aside, away from the crowd. You've seen him do this before, when privacy matters more than spectacle, and then he sticks his fingers in the man's ears. You try not to laugh, so blunt, so undignified. Then Jesus spits again seriously. What is it with him and spit? And touches the man's tongue. You brace for a Pharisee to leap out of the bushes, yelling, unclean, but none do. It's just the wind. And Jesus looks up to heaven, not dramatically, more like a sigh, toward something deeper than air. And he says one word, Ephatha. It means be opened. And the man whose ears haven't worked in years, whose tongue never quite knew how to behave, suddenly hears. He jerks, slightly, startled. You can see the change in his posture. His head cocks, as if the world's volume was suddenly turned on after a lifetime of mute silence. Someone coughs. A bird chirps. He flinches, laughs, then gasps like he's hearing himself for the first time. Then he speaks. It's not perfect, but it's his, clearer, stronger. Tears well in his eyes as he strings together words he probably practiced in dreams and never expected to say out loud. The crowd hears the noise, rushes in, and Jesus' form tells them all, don't tell anyone, which, of course, works about as well as telling a toddler not to touch the cake. Within minutes, it's the only thing anyone is talking about. You overhear someone muttering. He even makes the deaf hear and the mute speak. And right there, someone gasps, because that's a prophecy, a messianic one. Isaiah, to be exact. Then the ears of the deaf shall be unstopped, and the tongue of the mute shall sing for joy. This isn't just a cool trick. This is scripture coming true in real time. Historians still argue whether Jesus actually used the word Ephatha, or if the gospel writers added the Aramaic for dramatic flair. Others think the spit and finger movements were mimicking local healing rituals, a sort of cultural language to communicate care and power. But the man, he's not thinking about theology. He's humming now, humming. Tears run freely down his face as he listens to the world he lived in silently for so long. A baby fusses in the distance. Wind rustles, reeds. Someone claps a rhythm and the man mimics it, amazed that he can hear it join it. And Jesus, he's already moving on. Because that's what he does. No merch table, no healing tour posters, just miracle, mercy, and motion. That night, the healed man sits near the fire, hands fluttering as he learns to gesture his stories, voice cracking with joy as he tries out old sounds made new. You sit beside him. Do you remember the first thing you heard? You ask, he grins. My own laugh. You both chuckle at that later. Jesus sits on a low stone ledge, eyes scanning the stars. You ask him why he sighed before healing the man. Because the world's still heavy, he says, even when it sings quirky historical footnote. In some ancient healing rituals, breath and spit were thought to carry a person's essence. So maybe, in that sigh, Jesus wasn't just expressing emotion. Maybe he was sharing himself, his peace, his clarity, his voice with someone who had never known them. You fall asleep that night to the sound of the one's mute. Man softly whispering old prayers he finally knows how to say aloud, and the silence for once feels complete. It's the borderlands again between Samaria and Galilee this time. That invisible but deeply felt line where cultures shift, where people walk a little faster, speak a little less, and check over their shoulders more often. You've passed it before. It always feels the same. A little edgier, a little grayer. That's where you see them. 10 of them. They don't come close. They stand at a distance, just beyond the rocks, like they're tethered to an invisible fence. Ragged clothes, faces partially covered, skin splotched, raw in places. You know what it is before they even say a word. Lepers, they call out in a chorus-strained, cracked, desperate, Jesus, Master, have mercy on us. The group slows. Some of the disciples tense. One of them mutters, we shouldn't be this close. Another instinctively covers his mouth. But Jesus steps forward. He doesn't go to them. not yet. He just lifts his voice so it carries easily across the space between. Go, show yourselves to the priests. There's a pause. Confused glances. These men know the law. Priests are the gatekeepers of health, the ones who can officially declare someone clean. But to go to the priests now, while they're still visibly sick, that's ... bold, and yet they go. No hesitation. They hobble, limp, lean on each other. A half-squadron of disease and faith, moving because a stranger with a calm voice told them to, and as they go mid-steps, something changes. You see it from a distance. One of them stops, looks down at his arm, pulls back a sleeve, stares, then screams, his skin pink-hole, smooth. Another man stumbles, peels off a bandage, the wound is gone. Another reaches for his face. No more sores, all 10 healed. They collapse, laugh, shout. In disbelief, throw their arms around each other like drunks at a wedding. But one of them turns back. He runs, not walks, runs back, toward Jesus, his face glowing, tears streaming, voice shaking. He throws himself at Jesus' feet. He's sobbing, laughing, thanking him over and over. Like words can't carry the gratitude fast enough. And Jesus just watches him. Weren't there 10? He asks softly. The disciples nod slowly. Where are the other 9? He says. No one answers. Jesus lifts the man to his feet. Rise, go. Your faith has made you well. Now, this moment might seem like just a footnote, another healing, but it sticks with you, because the healing didn't stop with skin. Something deeper happened in that one man, something the others missed. Historians still argue about the phrase, your faith has made you well. Was it physical, spiritual, both? Some suggest it implies salvation. Others say it's just a deeper kind of restoration, like Jesus was handing him back not just health, but wholeness. Quirky tidbit. This man, the one who returned, was a Samaritan, the ancient equivalent of a cultural rival. Outsider, half-breed, in the cruelest terms of the time, which means the foreigner came back. The so-called enemy showed the most gratitude, and Jesus noticed later that day, someone asks him, did you know only one would return? He just smiles. Gratitude always finds its way home. You sit with that for a while, because there's something quietly profound about it. 10 were healed, but only 1 was transformed. That night around the fire, someone says, if we were healed like that, of course we'd go back and say thank you. But you're not so sure. You think about how easy it is to get what you prayed for, and run straight into the next worry without looking back. Gratitude isn't automatic. It's a decision. The stars blink overhead. Somewhere in the dark, the healed Samaritan walks back toward his people, still whispering thanks with every step. You wonder if the others ever did the same. You're in a synagogue again, but this one's different, smaller, older, tucked into the edge of a town that barely holds itself together. The stones are uneven. The roof sags slightly. There's a fig tree growing far too close to the back wall, as if the building was trying to retreat into the landscape and avoid attention. Inside, it's packed. Not because it's Sabbath, but because he walked in. Jesus steps carefully, scanning the room. You see his eyes settle on someone, an old woman, sitting near the back, half bent forward, her spine twisted like a tree struck by lightning. Her face is turned toward the floor, neck craned at an unnatural angle. She doesn't even notice him at first. She's been this way for 18 years. You hear whispers around you. She always sits there, doesn't speak much. She must have done something to deserve that. Jesus calls to her. "Woman," he says, "come here." A few people gasp, a few frown. She moves slowly, painfully, one small step at a time, like the very act of obeying might undo her. She doesn't lift her head, can't, but she shuffles forward until she stands well, leans just in front of him. He looks at her, not her posture, not her problem. "Her don't," he says, clear and gentle. "You are set free from your infirmity." He places his hands on her shoulders, and just like that she straightens. Her back uncoils like a spring, slow but steady. Her neck lifts, her arms stretch, her chest rises, and she laughs a sharp, surprised sound like a bird startled into flight. She raises her arms above her head, something she hasn't done in nearly 2 decades. Her face, previously hidden, glows with something even brighter than relief, dignity, and then come the complaints. The synagogue ruler clears his throat loudly. His voice booms in a practiced cadence. "There are 6 days for work. Come and be healed on those days, not the Sabbath." The crowd stiffens. Even the woman flinches. But Jesus turns to him, and his voice doesn't rise, but it cuts. "You hypocrites! Doesn't each of you untie your ox or donkey on the Sabbath and lead it to water? Then shouldn't this woman, a daughter of Abraham, bound for 18 years, be set free on the Sabbath?" Silence. Utter silence. Then, slowly, people begin to smile. The synagogue leader sits down. Slowly, quietly, the kind of defeat only truth can deliver. The woman, she's still upright, still glowing. She places her hand on her chest like she's trying to hold the joy in. Historians note that Jesus healed on the Sabbath a lot, enough that it became a pattern and a problem for the authorities. It wasn't just about the act, it was about what it represented, a shift in how holiness was understood. And here's the quirky tidbit. Scholars now say some synagogue officials at the time had taken the Sabbath rules so literally they wouldn't even tie knots or untie sandals. Jesus uses that logic. You untie animals, why not people? And flips their own rules on their heads. That night, back in the village, you hear people retelling it over shared loaves and olives. They talk less about the miracle and more about the moment after, when she walked out tall, when she smiled at the sun like it was meeting her for the first time. Someone asks Jesus, "Why do you always pick them? The sick, the outcasts, the nobodies?" He shrugs. "Because they're the ones who look up when I speak." You think of that twisted spine, the way she bent for years, eyes always on the dirt, her worth slowly curling in on itself. And now, she walks upright. Scholars still argue about what exactly afflicted her. Was it scoliosis, a spinal disease, psychosomatic trauma? But all of that misses the point. Whatever broke her didn't get the final say. She did. You see her again, days later, sweeping her doorway, singing, and every once in a while, she stretches. Not because she has to, but because she can. It begins with a fish. Well, technically, with a question about taxes. You're in Capernaum, and the tax collectors are out early, knocking on doors with their polite but entirely unignorable stares. One of them stops Peter just outside the house. You're all sharing, and asks, "Does your teacher pay the temple tax?" Peter blinks, half prepared to argue, then nods. Yes, of course, but he looks rattled when he steps back inside. You can tell he's already doing the mental math. 2 drachmas, one for Jesus, one for himself, and the pouch hanging from His belt isn't jingling with confidence. Before Peter can even ask, Jesus turns to him, already smiling. "What do you think, Simon?" He says casually, "From whom do the kings of the earth collect duty and taxes? From their own children or from others?" Peter frowns. "From others." "Then the children are exempt," Jesus replies. "But, so that we may not cause offense." He pauses. That half smile lingers. "Go to the lake. Throw in your line. Take the first fish you catch. Open its mouth, you'll find a Fordric Marcoin. Use it to pay the tax." For you and me, Peter stares. You stare. There's a solid few seconds of silence as the room processes what was just said. Then Peter sighs, grabs a rod, and walks out like a man who's learned not to argue with this particular rabbi, and you follow. Because let's be honest, who doesn't want to see a tax-paying fish? Down by the water, Peter casts his line. He mutters something about how he knew there'd be fish involved eventually. The line tugs. He reels it in. And there it is, just a normal-looking fish, wriggling like it doesn't understand what all the fuss is about. Peter reaches into its mouth, blinks, pulls out a coin, perfectly round, clean, for drachmas. He laughs. You laugh. Even the fish seems vaguely impressed. He holds it up toward the horizon, shaking his head. Next, he'll be paying rent with olives. Back in town, he pays the tax without another word. The collector counts the coin, nods. No miracles detected. Business as usual. But the story, very not usual. Historians debate whether this story is symbolic. Jesus, honoring both divine sonship and human law, a literal miracle, slipped in quietly to make a theological point. Fringe thinkers have tried explaining it away as a parable, or, more boldly, as slight dash of dash hand. But here's the weird part. This miracle isn't about healing, casting out demons, or calming a storm. It's about something absurdly ordinary: a coin, a tax, a fish, and still Jesus makes it divine. You think about that later as you sit on the steps near the water. Watching boats come in, it's a funny thing. The Son of God paying taxes, like everyone else, but maybe that's the point. That the sacred and the mundane aren't always far apart. That heaven sometimes hides in the gut of a fish. That evening, someone asks Jesus, why not just make the coin appear in your hand? Why send Peter to fish? He replies without looking up, because Peter needed to cast the line. And there it is, a gunji says, making people do something, step forward, trust, move. It's never just about the result, it's about the process. Quirky. Historical tidbit. Fishermen in 1st century Galilee often believed certain fish had medicinal properties. Some even claimed they carried charms or swallowed shiny things. One Roman source writes of a fisherman pulling a bronze ring from a fish's mouth and selling it as a lucky talisman. So, yeah, miraculous or not, this fish coin story had precedent. But even if someone could explain it away, would it matter? The tax got paid, the law got honored, and a fisherman got one. More reason to believe. You fall asleep that night wondering how many miracles go unnoticed because they wear the wrong costume, because they look like errands, like pocket change, like fish. And how many of them has Jesus already placed in front of you? You don't go near tombs casually. They're off limits, ritually unclean, and frankly, creepy, especially the ones carved into the hillside like yawning mouths, waiting to swallow up the living. But today, you're walking toward one. Voluntarily, Jesus. Got word 2 days ago. His friend Lazarus was sick. Not a stomach bug kind of sick, grave sick. And instead of running, Jesus waited a full 2 days. You heard him say quietly to no one in particular, "This sickness will not end in death. It is for God's glory." Still, that didn't make much sense when the messenger returned and said, "He's gone. Lazarus is dead." Now it's the 4th day, and you're in Bethany, following Jesus up a narrow path toward grief itself. The first person to greet him is Martha. She's not weeping. She's too composed for that. Her eyes are red, but her voice is steady. "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." It isn't blame exactly, more like exhausted faith. Jesus meets her eyes. "Your brother will rise again." She nods automatically. "I know he will rise." In the resurrection, at the last day, Jesus steps closer. "I am the resurrection and the life," he says. "Anyone who believes in me will live, even though they die." Do you believe this? She studies him. "Yes, Lord, I believe you are the Messiah, the Son of God." Then she leaves to find her sister. Mary is not composed. She stumbles toward Jesus, her face blotchy, her voice cracking with every word. "If you had been here, he wouldn't have died." And then she crumples, right there at his feet. Her pain spills out of her, raw and shaking. Jesus sees it, and something shifts in him. He doesn't answer right away. He doesn't offer a teaching, or a riddle, or even a parable. He weeps, right there, in front of the mourners, the friends, the whisperers. Jesus, Son of God, miracle worker, storm-stopper, weeps. And it's not a theatrical tear. It's deep, wordless, the kind of crying that comes from a heart pulled too tight by love and sorrow. Some nearby Jews see it and murmur, "Look how he loved him." Others mutter, "If he opened the eyes of the blind, couldn't he have kept this man from dying?" He doesn't answer them. He walks straight to the tomb. A heavy stone covers its mouth. There's a hush in the air as he arrives, like the earth itself is waiting. "Take away the stone," he says. Martha flinches, but, "Lord, he's been there for days. There will be a smell." Jesus looks at her. "Did I not tell you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God?" The stone rolls, it grinds and scrapes, and with every inch, the smell of old death creeps out, a pungent reminder of time, decay, and endings. Jesus lifts his eyes. "Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I know that you always hear me. But I say this for the benefit of the people standing here, that they may believe you sent me." Then, with a voice like thunder funneled through a whisper, he calls out, "Lazarus, come out." The silence is crushing. Then a sound, footsteps, shuffling, and out of the darkness of the tomb, wrapped in strips of linen, his face still covered, Lazarus walks out. Someone screams. Someone else drops to their knees. A goat bleats at the worst possible moment. You just stare, because death doesn't reverse itself. Except now it has. "Take off the grave clothes and let him go," Jesus says, and that's what they do, gently, as if waking a child. Lazarus blinks into the sunlight, like a man waking up late for work. His voice is hoarse. His sister touches his cheek, like she doesn't trust her own fingers. Historians still argue whether this story is metaphorical, literal, or symbolic of future resurrection. But the fact remains, you were there, you smelled the tomb, you heard the call, you saw a dead man walk out. And the implications are terrifying, because if he can do that, what else is he capable of? That night, the town is buzzing. Some are rejoicing. Others whisper in alleyways, already drafting letters to the temple elite, and somewhere behind a closed door, Lazarus sleeps, a live, quirky tidbit. Tombs back then weren't sealed permanently. They were more like family vaults. So when Jesus called Lazarus, the stone didn't have to be removed forever, just long enough for a miracle, just long enough for death to take a step back, and you sit awake far too late, staring at the stars, wondering how close you've come to death without even realizing it, and what it would sound like to be called back. The night is heavy with tension. You're in Gethsemane now, place that usually hums with olives, prayer, and wind-rustled leaves. But tonight it feels like the air is holding its breath. Everyone senses something coming. Even the trees seem still. Then footsteps, fast, muffled shouting, and in the dim torchlight, it happens fast. A mob floods in temple guards, servants, a few nervous Pharisees standing in the back, acting like they're in charge. Swords flash. Clubs wave in the air like angry punctuation marks. You recognize some faces. You've heard them argue with Jesus before. Now they've come with rope and orders. Judas leads them. His kiss lands on Jesus' cheek like a crack in glass, and just like that everything erupts. Peter draws a sword. You didn't even know he had a sword. He swings wildly, no technique, all instinct, and hits someone. A scream, you flinch. Malchus, the high priest's servant, drops to his knees, hands clutching the side of his head. His right ear is gone. Blood spills down his neck like a red ribbon unraveling. People scream. Soldiers rush forward. Swords rise. But Jesus doesn't run, doesn't yell. He steps forward. And in the chaos, he says, "No more of this." Then he touches the man, right on the wound. And just like that, the ear is back. Whole, clean, restored. Malchus freezes. His hand hovers in midair, no longer grasping blood, but skin. His eyes are wide, his breath short. He stumbles backward, almost afraid of his own head. The crowd quiets. Just for a heartbeat, Jesus turns to Peter. "Put your sword away," he says. "Shall I not drink the cup the Father has given me?" Then he turns and surrenders. Willingly, calmly, the one person in the entire scene who doesn't look afraid. They bind him, they lead him away, and just like that, the miracle is swallowed by the darkness. That ear, it's probably the last miracle Jesus performs before the cross. Not dramatic, not public, not flashy, just compassion, even for his enemy, even for someone who came to help arrest him. Fringe thinkers love this moment. Some say the healing wasn't just physical, that maybe Malchus went on to become a believer, or even a church leader. There's no proof of that, but it's hard to believe you could see your severed ear grow back and not rethink some life choices. Historians, meanwhile, marvel that this detail even made it into the record. Who includes a minor servant in a climax scene, unless it really happened. You linger in the grove after they take him. Malchus is gone. Peter too, he ran off, swearing and shouting. The others scattered, but you stay, because that image won't leave you. Jesus, healing someone who just hurt him, reaching out even as the world tries to tie his hands. And here's the quirky detail you'll remember forever. The man came with a weapon and left with a gift. That's not just mercy, that's upside down logic. That's grace doing cartwheels. You wonder what Malchus told people later. Did he lie? Did he pretend it didn't happen? Or did he lie awake at night, touching his ear, knowing the one he helped arrest was the only one who treated him like a person? You don't sleep much. None of you do. The wind returns to the trees, but something else has left. The next miracle won't come for 3 more days. And for now, the one who made the lame walk, the blind see, the dead rise, walks away under torchlight, toward trial, toward silence, toward death, and the man with the healed ear watches him go. It's mid-afternoon, and the sky is wrong, not just cloudy, not just overcast. Wrong. The kind of dark that doesn't belong to this time of day. Like someone dimmed the sun itself. A chill rides the wind through Jerusalem, and people walk faster, glancing at the heavens like they're expecting a storm, or something worse. You're near the hill. Golgotha. You didn't want to come, but your feet brought you anyway. Like they knew something your head couldn't accept. The scene is brutal. 3 crosses, soldiers, spectators, blood. You recognize Jesus immediately, even through the blood. The bruises, the crown of thorns pressing into his scalp, the miracle worker, the storm whisperer. The death-canceller, dying. There's a small group of women nearby. Mary, his mother, is there. So is John. Most of the disciples are gone, vanished into alleyways and locked rooms. But you stay. You have to and then something happens. At the very moment, the light dims to almost nothing. The ground shudders, not a polite tremor, a ripping, convulsing quake that rattles the city's bones. You feel it in your teeth. Hear the cracking of stone. Someone screams. Dust clouds rise, and then the sound low, long and echoing through every street of Jerusalem. The temple veil has torn, not yanked, not slashed, torn from top to bottom, not from man's reach, from God's. If you'd never seen the veil, imagine this: a thick curtain, nearly 30 feet tall, separating the Holy of Holies, the most sacred space, from the rest of the temple. A barrier, a warning, a divine "do not enter sin" now. Imagine it split like parchment, flapping uselessly in 2 pieces. The guards don't understand. The priests pale. Rumors fly instantly. The veil is gone. The barrier is broken. Someone whispers, "He tore it," and no one asks who they mean, because they all know. Historians still debate whether the veil's tearing was a literal event or symbolic poetry added later. Temple records from the time are silent, but you know what you felt under your feet, what you heard, what you saw ripple through a city built on ritual. Something sacred split wide open at the foot of the cross. One of the Roman centurions stares at Jesus and says, "Surely this man was the Son of God." It's not a confession, it's a realization. Even creation itself seems to react. Rocks split, graves crack open. Some say saints were seen walking around days later. Others pretend not to hear that part. But what you can't ignore is the silence that follows, thick, sudden, like the whole world inhaled and forgot to exhale. Then, it's over, he's gone. The man who healed with touch, spoke to wind, fed crowds with leftovers, raised the dead, is dead. But even in death, the earth moves. The veil tears. The world responds. You sit near the cross long after the others leave. The centurion orders the legs of the other criminals broken. A soldier approaches Jesus, pauses. "No need," someone says. "He's already gone." But just to be sure, the soldier thrusts a spear into Jesus' side. blood and water pour out. And it's strange because that's not what normally happens. Quirky detail. Some ancient physicians say the mixture of blood and water points to extreme heart stress, literally, a burst heart. Like he didn't just die from wounds, he died of heartbreak. You walk down the hill in the fading dark, numb, the city bustles below, trying to pretend today was just another execution. But something's shifted. No more curtain, no more separation, no more separation, no more distance between heaven and dirt. Just an empty space where the veil used to be, and the memory of a voice that once said, "It is finished." But what if it wasn't the end? What if it was the start? You're by the shore again, not the same one as before. This beach is smaller, quieter. The Sea of Galilee stretches out, smooth as a brushed sheet. Early morning mist clings to the water like it's reluctant to leave. The sky is soft grey, just beginning to hint at gold. And there on the shore you see him, Jesus, alive, that you rub your eyes. No, really you rub them, hard. Because this is the third time now, and it's still hard to believe. You were there when he died. You felt the earthquake, heard the last breath, saw the wrapped body disappear behind stone, and yet, here he is again. The disciples are in a boat, not far from shore, doing what they always did, fitting. It's like muscle memory for them now, like they've fallen back into their old life, unsure of what else to do. The miracles were real, yes, but the world is still broken. Rome is still in charge. Their teacher died, so they fish, and like many nights before, they catch nothing. Jesus stands on the beach, hands in his sleeves, watching the familiar dance of cast and haul, cast and haul. Then he calls out, "Friends, haven't you any fish?" You hear the tired groan from the boat. No, Jesus smiles. "Throw your net on the right side of the boat, and you will find some." It's so familiar, it's eerie. They do it anyway, half rolling their eyes, half clinging to that twitch of hope. The net sinks, then tugs violently, so full it nearly snaps. John gasps, "It's the Lord," and Peter, bless him, doesn't wait. He doesn't calculate. He doesn't even tie his belt properly. He jumps into the water, awkward, undignified, splashing his way toward shore like a man chasing the sunrise. The others haul the net behind the boat, struggling. And when they finally make it to land, Jesus is already cooking. A small fire, some fish, a few loaves. "Come," he says. "Have breakfast, that's it. No sermon, no thunder, no sky-cracking announcement, just fish, bread." Morning warmth. Jesus breaks the bread and passes it around. And no one says a word. No one needs to, because this quiet moment of breakfast ease, the miracle, not just resurrection, restoration. This is Jesus meeting his followers, not in a temple or a blaze of glory, but in their confusion, in their return to normal, on a beach with breakfast. You chew slowly, savoring everything, because you're not just eating food, you're eating proof. When they finish, Jesus turns to Peter. "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" Peter swallows, "Yes, Lord, you know I love you. Feed my lambs." Then again, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" "Yes, Lord, you know I love you. Tend my sheep." And once more, because of course, Jesus does things in threes. "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Peter's voice cracks this time. "Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you." Jesus nods. Feed my sheep. You realize he's undoing Peter's 3 denials, not with shame, with invitation. He's not just forgiving, he's recommissioning, turning failure into calling. That's the last miracle, you think. Not walking on water, not healing blindness, but cooking fish, restoring a friend, turning a beach into a sanctuary. Historians still puzzle over this story. Why fish? Why bread? Why a casual meal instead of some world-shaking event? But maybe that is the point. The world-shaking event already happened. Now it's about breakfast, quiet, intimate, human. Jesus never stopped being human. He just stopped staying dead. Quirky fact, in early Christian art, before crosses became the symbol of faith, it was fish. Fish carved into walls, into stone, into tombs. This moment, the beach breakfast, was how they remembered him, not just the cross. This, you walk back slowly after the meal. The fire smolders gently behind you. The sea is calm. Jesus walks a little ahead, feet leaving prints in the sand, and you realize he still walks with you, even here, even after everything, even now. You linger on that beach long after Jesus walks off with Peter, their voices fading into the rhythm of the waves. The fire crackles down to embers. The fish bones are picked clean. The others stretch out in the sand or talk quietly, unsure if they're allowed to laugh yet or if joy still has rules in this new world. You sit still, so much has happened. It's like trying to rewind a dream. Water turned to wine, storms silenced, bones straightened, sight given, death reversed. And in between touches, words, meals, sighs, laughter, weeping dot each miracle a thread, together. They made a tapestry that never quite looked finished. But now, here, on this beach, it feels whole. From that wedding in Cana to this morning's fire-cooked breakfast, Jesus hasn't just demonstrated power. He's redrawn, reality moved the horizon line, and the last miracle. It's not flashy, no thunder, no opened graves. It's that he came back and ate with you. That the Word became flesh and stayed for breakfast. The others begin rising, brushing sand from their robes. There's no instruction to stay, no formal benediction, just the lingering glow of a fire and the sense that something deep has settled in your bones. As you walk from the shore, you realize the miracles didn't stop. They just changed form. They live now in your memory, in the way you'll talk. Two strangers, in the way you'll reach for people, in the way you'll never look at storms, bread, or death the same way again. Historians still argue about it all. Did it really happen? Was it embellished? Were the stories polished over time into poetry? But no scroll can explain what you felt on that beach, or that hillside, or in the boat, or under that torn temple veil. You didn't just witness miracles. You didn't just witness miracles. You walked inside them. You lived with a man who turned interruptions into sacred moments, who broke every rule to restore broken people, who wept at tombs and whispered to waves. And now he's alive, and he's not finished. Quirky final tidbit. Some ancient traditions say the very beach where he cooked that fish became a quiet pilgrimage site. No shrine, no golden dome, just stones, silence, and the lapping of the sea. Because that's the thing about the miracles of Jesus. They don't demand attention, they invite it. So now, let your breath slow. Feel the weight of the story soften across your shoulders. Like a heavy robe lifted gently away, No need to remember every detail, the fish, the wine, the laughter in the synagogues, or the dust stirred by sandals on forgotten roads. Just rest in the sense that you were there, that you walked through a world being rewritten gently from the inside out. You felt the storm under your feet, heard the joy in a healed man's voice, tasted bread that came from nowhere and fed everyone. You saw death blink and back away, and through it all, Jesus didn't perform, he restored. He didn't come to impress, he came to invite. Now, maybe you're lying in bed, the lights low, the world quieter than usual. Maybe your day was long, maybe it still clings to you like stubborn fog. But here, in this last moment before sleep, know this: you were part of something sacred tonight, not just because of what you heard, but because of how you felt it, in your bones, in your breath, in the slow hush that's settling in around you now. So let the story stay with you. Let it drift gently through your dreams. You are seen, you are known, you are not alone in the dark, and who knows, maybe, just maybe, Jesus is still cooking breakfast on some quiet shore, waiting for you to notice the firelight in the mist.